Hilty said that no one likes to work from birth. And I totally agree with this. No matter how much you enjoy the work, you can't have started it because you liked it from the beginning. It is human nature to agree on playing or resting rather than working. However, humans have to work, so they cannot live in the world if they refuse to like it. Everyone will want to work on what they like. In reality, however, not many people think they are working in such a job. This is because the first priority is the idea that you must have a job to make a living. But you can't force yourself to do things you don't like. Most people are often compromising properly, if not to the point where they like it, at least not to the point where they don't like it. Man works for himself above all else. I'm a single person. It doesn't matter if you stop there. But when you get married and have children, you can't quit your job even if you take your family. These days, there are many couples working together, so the military does not have to bear all the financial burden alone. However, I can't work thinking that I should earn money to eat and use alone, as I did before marriage. Therefore, the burden is much greater than when you are single. And while the village works, they become depressed and fall into a slump thinking that they do what they really want to do. However, when you look at the wind in the direction of your thoughts, surprisingly different facts stand out. Love tends not to do its best in everything if you think you only need to live in action. It's because I do my best or sometimes even pull out the power that I don't have, but it's always like that without trying to do anything. It turns out, this is enough. Or maybe this is the limit of my ability. It's easier to give up on anything in the middle. Yeah, if you think about what you're doing, the problem of eating and living with your loved ones is sweet. Or if you give it a different meaning, would the company work be too hard? Even if I feel like quitting because it's not fun, I quit easily. I can't throw it. Even if you're very competent or lucky, you're forced to continue working for the company, whether you like it or not, unless you're guaranteed a new job. Halty also said this. Diligence does not arise without a stronger motive than emotional indolence. And there are always two kinds of motives. Low-level motives include lust, especially honor, greed, and the need to maintain life. A high level of motivation is work itself, or love and responsibility for people. Among them, a high level of motivation has a long-lasting property, and it also has a characteristic that is not necessarily dependent on the result. Therefore, you never lose your passion even if you get tired of it after you fail, or even if you gain satisfaction after you succeed. In other words, people work because of their responsibility to their loved ones. Moreover, if you think that work itself is helpful to others, even if you sometimes fail, you will not give in to it and continue to work. It means you can. It's not just for yourself, I reiterate, if it's just for you. It's easy to lose motivation at the point where you think you should quit now. But what he's doing is for the sake of his loved one. If you think of L, you can't give up that easily. Even if there is an ordeal, it is important to dig a well without giving up. Basically, don't you say that you have to work in one field for about 10 years to show true creativity. It is important to endure like this. In fact, it is difficult to endure, and the work itself is often not difficult. Perv 1. Invest 30 minutes from the easy and simple task. Okay, there are people who have to start something, but they keep procrastinating without realizing it and rarely get things started. Such a man is willing to let anything happen. There is a deadline for anything, so when we get to the end, we have no choice but to finish it. In that case, I'm going to get caught up in time and do things, or get worse. He struggles to find a hole to grind, but eventually raises both his hands and feet. After that, no matter what you do, you don't get trust from the people around you. A person who takes care of things? Unreliable. It could be labeled. On the other hand, some people decide the direction accurately from the beginning because they want to do things so perfectly that they do not start working at all. There is. However, there are more people who procrastinate for the former than the latter. Things that you don't want to do are easily put off. There is probably no one who procrastinates while doing what they like. In some cases, it is not easy to come at it because it is thought of as trivial or because it is not a simple end. It's hard to start with anything. So, if you don't want to be a procrastinator, it's better to take care of what you need to solve right away. Once you start, you feel at ease and speed up your work after that. But the sooner you have to deal with it, the more pressure you have to do it, the better you have to do it, so you don't have to work. He can't do it, and he just bumbles around for nothing. And for some reason, things rarely go on because they lose motivation and end up dragging their feet. As a result, it affects other things, and everything is delayed. One trick is to find and start the easiest and simplest job when you are not motivated, even if you have something to do in front of you. If you invest about 30 minutes, you will warm up in a good condition to work. After doing so, you can start doing what you need to do urgently when you get a little weary. If you suddenly exercise violently, the same goes for what you do with your head, just as your body doesn't listen or aches here and there. Therefore, why don't you try to figure out your own tricks by warming up your hair that is not fully operational? Pork, a good habit of working creatively. 071. Work with X momentum. No matter what you do, you need something called visual. It's not a good way to do something difficult and unwanted from the morning. I must get it done. If you think about it like this and linger, you will have an impact on other things, and eventually you won't be able to do anything in the morning. Therefore, in the morning, it is better to deal with the things that can be done easily first. It's about embarking on a difficult task. Most importantly, whatever it is, you should boldly start from the beginning and go to work. In the theory of happiness, Swiss philosopher Hilti, who started with simple tasks that can be easily handled and then gained momentum, writes, when the momentum rises, the most important thing is not to put things behind you. In order to do so, don't make excuses such as not being in good shape or not being able to easily reach your hands. Every day, you have to work steadily by spending the right amount of time. The habit of making deadlines precise. There used to be 3 bricklayers somewhere. A person asked the following question to 3 people. What are you doing here? As you can see, the first bricklayer, we're building bricks, replied that. The second bricklayer works to earn a day's pay, replied that. The third bricklayer will look up at the sky with a bright expression, as if he were dreaming, and there will be a nice building here. The cathedral that will be forever remembered. It's a cathedral that's going to be an oasis in the hearts of the people of this region. I'm working so diligently on building bricks for it, replied that. His story went on. I'm going to night school doing brickwork now. To study construction design. It's no more than a humble bricklay, but you'll see. I'm sure I'll be a first-class architect in the future. As a first step towards that, first of all, I will take the qualification exam next year. A good habit of working in a creative position. I'll bite, he said in a confident tone with his eyes shining. This story teaches us a lesson. The 2 people's brick garden is a life that lives that day without any particular purpose. Therefore, the 2 bricklayers will never see much light in their lifetime. Meanwhile, a third bricklayer who is clearly drawing his goals will never stay in a brick ball. I am sure that I will succeed in achieving that goal. Human happiness exists in the process of setting a goal and working towards it. This is a lesson that teaches the importance of goal setting in our lives, which are often in the habit of setting goals. Reflection through East and West, scientific discoveries, and success in technology development projects all have something in common. It is that the people who made the invention and discovery had clear goals, so it could be realized. Setting goals is more important than anything else in our lives. Salespeople referred to as top sales have the following silver words. We only think about how we can increase sales. But it's just, if you just shout for an increase in sales, your grades won't go up. Therefore, the detailed numbers and deadlines are strictly set for its realization. That way, a strong force rises and you can achieve your goals one after another. Especially when the deadline is to close. The momentum is great. Part 4. Good habit of working creatively 075. The habit of starting what you want to do first. He is unwilling to make new strides. As one of the aforementioned philosophers said, I'm not ready enough to say it's perfect yet. They make excuses and do not act. It can be said to be a wise saying enlisting the reasons why it cannot be done. For example, suppose there is a pile of documents on the desk. You'll be embarrassed where to start. In that case, active people first start to touch what they can easily do. In any case, it is impossible to process all the piles of documents at once. Therefore, you have to deal with what you can do first one by one. By doing so, things go smoothly and quickly. From 1 to 10, you can't do anything until when you want to start from the point of perfection. This is a phrase from a philosophical anthropology written by a philosopher who rarely tries to take action by making excuses for cooking. It's a word of reproach. There are people of various professions in the world, including business managers, salaryman educators, scientists, engineers, and service workers. However, anyone in any field will be able to divide the following two. One is successful and the other is unsuccessful. It's a group of people. What separates these two? I think it's the difference in action power. The difference between successful people and successful people is really crucial. RAM. In other words, those who cannot escape from adversity no matter how many years have passed, and those in passive groups have made excuses in many ways, and they are in their own situation. The difference between the active and the passive, the difference between the active and the passive appears in every action. Active people are always mindful of dealing on the spot. And you gain trust and confidence as a byproduct of that. Furthermore, you get a high income. On the other hand, there are people who find an excuse to put up excuses just by a little bit of failure. He could be called a coward. However, it will not happen if you do something that makes no excuses. That said, I don't think it's a good thing to push those people too far. If anyone wants to give you an excuse, listen purely. But don't ever give yourself a weak excuse. Puri, a good habit of working creatively. He asked me to listen to other people's excuses, but on the other hand, the two ways of thinking about not making excuses for yourself, though, feel like they contradict each other. However, this is also an expression of the attitude of strictly to oneself, but not strict to others. An active person in. I think I'm a person with this kind of positive thinking. The habit of dealing with important things at the most efficient time. There is a theory that the most active human brain activity is 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. However, it can be said that it varies depending on the person. Depending on the person, the time may be 2.3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, or 6 o'clock. Also, for those who work at night, the late night may be the best time to concentrate. Therefore, it is thought that the theory that 10 o'clock or 3 o'clock is best is for general office workers or students. It must have been induced by their wake-up time. In any case, it is certain that there are times when the brain becomes active and times when the brain is not active during the same day. However, it is as mentioned earlier that it varies from person to person. What I want to argue here is that you need to know when your most efficient time is. It's not that important in a time slot, for example, filing. Part 4. Good habit of working creatively 079.
페이지를 넘겨보세요.
Listen to a person. It is appropriate for phone calls, and so on. And I think it is the ideal way to handle the most important